have you ever stopped to think about what really, truly lasts? We tend to think about legacy in terms of, money or status or power. But what if the most powerful mark we can leave isn't something we build, but something we share? Today, we're going to dig into how teaching, in its purest sense, creates the one thing that actually survives: understanding.
So we hear all the time about how leadership can multiply impact inside a team or a company. That's great, but that brings up a much bigger question. How does that impact actually jump across time? From one generation to the very next. What's the real engine for that kind of lasting influence?
Just think about it for a second. Power that comes from a position, it's always temporary.
Your title? Sooner or later, someone else is going to have it.
And your personal influence? Well, that fades with time and distance. All of those things are tied directly to your physical presence.
But teaching is a whole different ballgame. It isn't tied to you being in the room. It's an idea, an insight, a new way of thinking that gets planted in someone else's mind. And once it's there, well, it can travel absolutely anywhere, way beyond your own reach.
So to really get this, we have to completely redefine what we mean by teaching. Forget the job title. We're talking about a behavior.
When we hear the word teaching, our mind usually jumps to a pretty specific image, right? We see classrooms, universities, maybe some expert at a podium. But that picture is just way too small.
This is the shift we're talking about. Real teaching isn't about commanding someone to do something. It's about explaining why it needs to be done. It's not about just giving out answers. It's about sharing your reasoning. It's about moving away from control and toward actually helping someone see the world in a whole new way. That's where legacy starts.
And this is the core idea right here. Every single time that spark of understanding passes from one person to another, a little piece of legacy gets made. It turns teaching from this formal, stuffy role into an everyday act that literally anyone can do.
Okay, so what is it about passing on understanding that makes it so much more durable than just using your authority? Let's break down why it actually lasts.
There's a really powerful concept in psychology for this called generativity. It's this deep, fundamental human need to guide the next generation, to create something that will outlive us. And teaching, it is the purest expression of that drive.
This makes the difference crystal clear. Authority depends on your position, your rank, your title. The second you're gone, that control just vanishes. Poof. But teaching depends on clarity. And when you teach successfully, what's left behind isn't control. It's judgment. It's the ability for that person to think for themselves, using the framework you gave them.
And here's the bottom line. You'll probably forget every manager who just told you what to do, but you will never forget the person who taught you a new way to think. That becomes a part of you.
Now, this idea becomes absolutely critical when we start talking about passing on something as deep and as important as our values. See, rules can be forced on people, but values have to be understood if they're going to survive.
You can't just send out a memo about integrity and call it a day. Values aren't memorized from a list. They're absorbed through context, through stories that make them feel real, through examples that show them in action, and through a deep understanding of the consequences.
This is the key. Just stating a value is like placing a plant on top of the soil. It's just sitting there. But when you explain the why behind it, the reasoning, the stories, you give that value roots. And values with deep roots don't need someone standing over them. They sustain themselves.
What's so wild about all this is that the most powerful teaching often feels, invisible. It's not about being the star of the show. It's about starting a ripple effect that you might not even see the end of. It's legacy without the ego.
Jack Welch absolutely nailed this idea. The leaders who build a real legacy aren't the star players. They're what some people call multipliers. Their success isn't measured by their own genius, but by their invisible work in unlocking the genius in everybody else.
And here's how that quiet, invisible impact just explodes. It all starts when you teach for real understanding, not just for obedience. Then, that person takes what they learned, they apply it, they adapt it to new challenges, and then, and this is the magic part, they teach it to others. And all of a sudden, your impact is scaling and evolving completely on its own, without you.
So, this brings the whole conversation right back to us, because whether we mean to or not, we are all teaching, all the time.
And let's be really clear about what people actually value as a legacy. A huge study found that for an overwhelming 94% of people, a life well lived is about relationships and having a positive impact. You know what came in way, way down the list? Accumulating a lot of wealth at just 10%. This desire to leave a meaningful mark is practically universal.
So this reframes the whole thing, doesn't it? The question isn't, am I a teacher? You are. People are already watching how you think, how you act, what standards you hold. The only real question left is, what am I teaching?
Look, you don't need a platform or permission to leave this kind of mark. The proof that you're building a legacy is actually pretty simple. Does someone out there understand a tricky idea a little better because you took a moment to explain it? Does someone think more clearly about a problem because you shared how you see it? Did someone make a wiser choice because you helped them see the bigger picture?
Because at the end of the day, this is the one legacy that truly lasts. Power, titles, money, they're all just temporary containers. But understanding is a seed, and once you plant it, it can grow and spread for generations, long, long after the teacher is gone.